applications, inter-blockchain applications actually with Cosmwasm and IBC, basically on the Cosmos ecosystem. Okay, first of all, we need to talk about what's the next superpower of Web3, or what is the most important factor people need to take care of when building applications, and it's to build scalable applications. Now, what is a scalable application? Scalable applications need to have, let's say, 3 characteristics. First, they need to be chain agnostic, so you need to be able to deploy it as on much chains as possible, and even on multiple chains if needed as well. So basically, having a smart contract language which allows you, like EVM, maybe to deploy on all EVM chains, or Cosmwasm to deploy on all Cosmos SDK chains. The second characteristic is interoperability. And basically, we need an application that is able to access liquidity and data from any chain, from different chains and different applications, right? So the more your application can access chains and access liquidity, the higher its value is, the more the use cases, and basically the higher the total available market you have. And third, modularity, of course. So it's very important for scalable applications to be able to have the ability to add or remove components pretty easily, right? So add a cross-chain component from one place or remove it and keep the application working as it should. So these 3 are needed if you want to build a good application for the future. Because right now, the trend in Web3 is going to be chain agnostic, and people care less of what chain they're on and more of the application they're using. Now, so here we introduce Cosmwasm, and I call it the language of scalable applications. And the reason is, first of all, it's security. So basically, it's built on Rust, and it prevents mostly all of the major risks you have when in Solidity smart contracts, right? So basically, you don't have re-entry attacks, which is one of the most major attacks you have on Solidity, right? And the reason is due to the Rust safe language and as well as how it allocates memory. Second of all, it's very powerful. So because it's built on Rust, it allows for way more cost-effective compute. So the transactions per second is much higher. It allows you for 10,000 transactions. And it's way cheaper for validators to run Cosmwasm on their nodes, just because it's way more effective than Solidity. And finally, they are interoperable, so they allow you to integrate IBC libraries between smart contracts. So you can build a smart contract that interacts with other chains, gets liquidity, and it's pretty easy to do it when you learn it. So if you want to build scalable application, I think this is the language to use. Okay, so just a quick intro about IBC. IBC basically works when you have 2 chains, and each chain you can create channels. And channels basically is let's call it, a channel basically is responsible of creating a packet which you're able to send over to another chain, right? And what transmits this message is what we call a relayer. A relayer is an off-chain sequencer, if you want to call it, which is responsible of taking one hash and sending it from one chain to another. So some might say, oh, a relayer is off-chain, it's centralized, which is not the case, because the relayer cannot access the data, cannot alter the data. Its only responsibility is moving a packet hash from chain A to chain B. That's it, right? So whenever you have 2 channels, you connect them with any relayer. You can run it yourself if you want to. And basically, it makes sure that the channel in chain B takes in the packet, and you don't need to trust the relayer at all. The trust needs to be in the chain. So if you trust the chain that's doing the proper hashing and proper decrypting, then don't need to trust the relayer. Now, the power of IBC you can see in this image, and this is from mapofzones.com. You can see all of these chains, Cosmos and outside of Cosmos, all using IBC to interact with each other. And if you see the actual website, you'll be able to see the messages moving between all the chains. And as you see, like, every second there's hundreds of IBC transactions being committed. And yeah, so I don't think there's another ecosystem or bridge that is able to provide this type of scalability, right? So if I've ever seen scalability, this is it. And if you want to build applications, through Cosmwasm and IBC, you'll be able actually to access all these chains, right? If you have the relayers, and as well as get data from or liquidity from these chains even, right? And the next big thing I think for IBC is interchain accounts. Now interchain accounts pretty easily, it allows you using one private key on any chain to control multiple accounts on different chains, right? So rather than having, for example, in a cross-chain swap, to sign 2 transactions, one on chain A and one on chain B, you only needed to sign 1 transaction on any of these chains. And using interchain accounts, what happens is you create basically it's called an ICA on the other chain, and you're able to execute any transaction which represents your wallet, right? So this basically allows you to do a transaction on 10, 15 chains using only 1 private key and signing only 1 transaction. So for any like cross-chain swaps or any basically transaction that requires to call multiple chains at a time, you'll need to do this, right? Or else the user will have to sign 5, 6 transactions. Okay, so if you want to learn more about Cosmwasm and how to write these smart contracts, you can go to cosmwasmbyexample.com. It has all the examples you need. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.